What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. Got a big week planned this week. We are halfway through the 2022 college football season. For most teams, I know some teams have already had their bye, so they've only played 5 games, but most teams have already played 6 games. We're 6 weeks into the season. Going to give you my 5 takeaways, but this week I've got a bunch of videos planned, and we're going to re-predict every Power 5 conference based off of what's happened so far. I'm going to give you my predictions for the second half of the season. We're going to look at the top most disappointing team so far, the big surprise team so far, several videos planned, hopefully going to preview some of the big games this week as well. So a lot coming this week here on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure you turn on those notifications so you don't miss anything, because again, a lot of videos coming. But let's get to the 5 takeaways from week 6. It was an interesting week. This week coming up is Separation Saturday coming up. There are so many big games. That's why I want to preview some of those games. But anyways, back to week 6, which we learned a lot. We did get some takeaways. We'll start with Alabama. That was a big story late last night with their close game against Texas A&M. And my takeaway is just that Alabama's not a top 5 team without Bryce Young. They're just not. They're a totally different team. Jalen Milroe, a different player. You know, he can run the football. You know, he can bring some things to this offense. But Bryce Young is a leader of this team. They need him on the field. And I could see them losing a couple of games if he was. I believe he'll be back. I don't know if he's going to be back for Tennessee, but I believe he'll be back pretty soon. And without him in there, this is just a different team because the offense cannot move the ball through the air. And we continue to see the struggles with them running the football. At times, you'll see some nice runs, but there are other times they're just really inconsistent, not able to run the football, which is something that, of course, Alabama has always been able to do. That offensive line still has some issues. When they did throw it, even with a fast, athletic quarterback in Jalen Milroe, he was sacked several times, under pressure a lot. So that offensive line is still a problem. The defense is not as good as, say, Georgia. You know, you watch Georgia and what they did to Auburn pretty much, completely. Auburn couldn't do anything. And this is a Texas A&M offense that had been struggling. Haynes King has been terrible. Max Johnson goes down with the injury. Haynes King steps in, and he actually played a pretty good game. And A&M moved the football against Alabama. So that defense is not as dominant as some of the previous Alabama defenses. So with Bryce Young, we've seen them at their potential to be the best team in college football. It all kind of works together. So when the offense is not doing much, it puts a lot more pressure on the defense. That's why you see a lot of these high-scoring teams. They go out and score a ton of points, and they go really fast, and the defense gives up a lot of points. It's not always because the defense is bad. It's just because, you know, they're out there all the time. Well, this is not the exact same thing because the offense can't really get anything going, and it puts a lot of pressure on the defense to keep going back out there. And so both of those, you know, 2 different scenarios there, 2 different examples for offenses. But if that offense can't get going, then it does put a lot of pressure on the defense. With Bryce Young, you know what you're going to get, and they're going to score points. So that's a different team. Without Bryce Young, a different Alabama team, and I don't believe they'll beat Tennessee on Saturday without Bryce Young. If he plays, it's going to be a great game. If he does not play, I think Tennessee wins that game. All right, number 2, with Quinn Ewers playing, Texas looks like the best team in the Big 12. So what a difference a quarterback makes. Just talked about Alabama, now with Texas. Quinn Ewers, this is a phenomenal player. I mean, he's living up to the hype. I know went against Alabama, played great before he went down with the injury. And this Texas team was not bad when he went down. They did lose to Texas Tech. I think a lot of that was just conservative play calling on offense. If they had been a little bit more aggressive, they probably win that game. But yeah, I think Texas looks like the best team in the Big 12 with him in there. They completely blew out Oklahoma. I know Oklahoma is awful right now, but the offense was clicking on all cylinders. Quinn Ewers was making just some of the throws he makes. I mean, it's incredible. Like I said, he is living up to the hype. And they actually have a defense now. Texas has a defense, much better defense than last year. So to me, this looks like the best team in the Big 12. But I do want to give some credit to TCU and Oklahoma State. Both of those teams still undefeated. TCU, very gutsy win against Kansas. That was a great game, back and forth. I believe Kansas is a good team. I know I said that they're not a contender, and I don't really see them getting to the Big 12 championship, but they're still a good team. They're a quality team. And TCU, that was a very nice win for them. They're still undefeated. Oklahoma State had some struggles against Texas Tech, but they were able to get it done when they had to. Very nice win for them. So to me, right now, when I look at the Big 12, it's kind of Texas. I think they're probably going to make it to the Big 12 championship. Because remember, they only have one conference loss. The other loss came to Alabama in the non-conference. And then I think it might be versus TCU or Oklahoma State. Those two teams play on Saturday. So the winner of that game, that could be potentially a game that decides who goes to the Big 12 championship. But yes, Texas looked really, really good against Oklahoma. Moving on to number 3. UCLA is a serious contender in the Pac-12. How about their win over Utah? This team is playing some good football, and they got that win out of their way. Also, the win over Washington. They've already gotten 2 big wins. UCLA is rolling right now. Dorian Thompson-Robinson looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They're able to run the football. The defense is giving them something. They're playing pretty good on that side of the ball as well. So, yes, UCLA, I had my doubts. I thought maybe the Washington game was just, they played great that game. But now seeing them do it again against Utah, this is a serious team. I'd still believe Oregon and USC are the top 2 teams in the Pac-12, but I think UCLA has entered into that conversation. USC looked really good on Saturday with a win over a pretty good Washington State team. Oregon survives a road test against Arizona. That was kind of a trap game, a tricky game, playing them on the road. So those look like the 3 teams right now. Utah, I just don't think they're quite as good as we expected them to be coming into this season. Still a good team, but like I said, USC, Oregon, those look like the favorites, with UCLA now in that conversation. And who knows, maybe we see UCLA into the Pac-12 championship game. A lot of big games coming up in that conference. Pac-12 is much better than I think people are giving them credit for. This is a good conference this year with some good teams. Bad news for the Pac-12 is UCLA and USC are about to leave. They're going to the Big Ten. So now that UCLA finally kind of gets it going, they're going to leave the conference. So that's bad news there, of course, for the Pac-12. And Oregon may be leaving too. Who knows how that's going to go down. Let's go to number 4. So UCLA is a serious contender in the Pac-12. I think Tennessee is a serious contender in the SEC. Look at what they did to LSU. Now, I know LSU's had their struggles, but Tennessee just jumped out on them. Of course, the fumble on the opening kickoff, some turnovers. Tennessee just got a big lead, and they never looked back. We know what we're going to get from this offense from Tennessee. Hendon Hooker, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They're able to go fast and spread you out and score a lot of points. We know that, and we're going to get that from Tennessee. They have the talent to do it. Josh Heupel's offense, they're going to score a lot of points. The defense, though, is playing pretty good. Pretty good against a very good LSU run team. They were able to do a nice job against the run in that game. Played them pretty well. And so I look at this Tennessee team, and we've seen Alabama and we've seen Georgia both struggle at times. Now, we've seen those 2 teams look elite and look like the best 2 teams in the country, but we've also seen them struggle at times. If they struggle against Tennessee, if they're not having a great game against Tennessee, I think Tennessee could beat Alabama or Georgia. And right now, I kind of think Tennessee might win one of those 2 games coming up. So I think Tennessee is in that conversation with Georgia and Alabama. Can they do it consistently? Let's say they do beat, for example, Alabama on Saturday. Well, what if they follow that up with an upset loss to a Kentucky or South Carolina? That's how you get to that elite status. You're able to take care of business against all those other teams. We'll find out if Tennessee is there, but again, it's going to be a challenge. I'm not saying it's a given that they're going to beat Alabama or Georgia, but I think they're at least a contender in the SEC. I think you have to start paying attention to this Tennessee team. Very impressed with their win on the road at a talented LSU team. And then number 5, the Big Ten West is going to be crazy. I mean, it is going to be crazy. When you look at the standings right now, okay, if you haven't looked, this may surprise you. Tied for first place, Illinois, Purdue, and Nebraska. The Nebraska team that was awful, that fired their head coach. Yeah, they're tied for first place in the Big Ten West. And then at the bottom, so you've got Minnesota at the middle. They're 1-1 in the conference. Then at the bottom, you've got Wisconsin, Iowa, and Northwestern at 1-2. So yes, Wisconsin and Iowa right now tied for last place in the Big Ten West. Illinois with a really good win over Iowa in a low-scoring game. Now, this isn't exactly a bunch of great teams going at it. I realize this division is not very good when you have Illinois and a 3-3 Nebraska team tied for first place in the division. You know that division isn't great. I still kind of think Purdue is going to come out of here mostly because of their schedule. If you look at what they have in front of them, some big games at home. They don't play Ohio State or Michigan. So I really like the schedule for Purdue. But we can't count out Illinois. We can't count out Nebraska. Really can't count anyone out in this division because it's still wide open. Everyone's within a game. And one of these teams is probably going to get hot. Maybe it's a Minnesota. Maybe it's a Wisconsin. They looked a lot better on Saturday. But this division is going to be crazy going down the stretch. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Maybe we're not talking about playoff contenders or anything like that. But I think a lot of times we forget college football can be great even if teams aren't playing to get into the college football playoff. These division races can be a lot of fun, and I think this Big Ten West one is going to be a wild ride going into the second half of the season. So those are my 5 takeaways. Again, a lot of big videos coming up this week. Make sure you keep it right here. Stay tuned. I don't know exactly when each video is going to come out, so turn on the notifications. You'll get a notification once that video is posted as we kind of recap the first half of the season and look ahead to the second half of the season. Give me your takeaways from week 6 down in the comments below. Your thoughts. Of course, there were plenty of other things going on. I can't talk about everything. You know, Notre Dame getting a big win over BYU last night. Now all of a sudden Notre Dame is kind of back into that top 25 conversation. And BYU, everyone's kind of talking about them as a potential playoff team or a New Year's Six team. I think we can kind of forget about that one for now. But, you know, Georgia looked really good against Auburn. Ohio State looked really good against Michigan State. Michigan kind of struggled against Indiana. We'll talk more about these teams in my top 25 video as I go through the top 25 teams. And again, I'll talk about each team a little bit in their game from Saturday. So again, that's coming up next. But plenty of content coming this week. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more right here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.